All right. And you guys go over quick estimate?
Yeah, actually, onto the actual.
Yeah, that's not
And we did race goals.
That was so much more helpful
Alright.
than I expected.
We're good.
In just understanding like the degree and exact attack angle that sure we have.
Exactly.
Alex.
Angles, vector coordinates, very. All right, now we go on with that. All right, so bullshitology, obvious, the study of bullshit. I removed the hyphen because now it's official. So this should be a little bit obvious, but what is bullshit? This is actually straight from a dictionary, not my own definition, which is pretty dope. So, you know, noun, whatever, but I think the most important one to look at is the verb. Two key words that I find are misleading and deceptive. Deceptive always has an intentional nature, but misleading could actually be unintentional. So it's kind of important to be able to distinguish those two types of bullshit, because then you can better understand how to work with it and the people that provide that. So just to be straightforward, here are some goals that I'm hoping to achieve. I hope you guys understand some of the pros and cons of BS. I could talk about them, but that's a pretty shitty goal because, you know, I can talk all day and that doesn't mean shit. So you guys should actually understand it. So please pay attention. That'd be fantastic. So I hope to provide you guys the tools to, you know, kind of everywhere between finding bullshit, working through it, and hopefully not. If you guys need to create your own bullshit, you'll at least be able to. But like, I'd stray away from that because that's usually bad practice. And also, we'll have some like fun work through examples, just because like you can talk about examples all day, but unless you actually turn your own brain on it, you're actually kind of not going to get good at it. So some disclaimers. When people talk about bullshit, it's usually like, oh, I'm so angry, I hate everyone, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, this isn't an opinionated thing. Like, this is supposed to be like a philosophical experiment. And for us to like truly understand like the social constructs of what bullshit is, why people use it. Because realistically, everyone has goals, right? You have things that you want and things that you don't want. People sometimes use bullshit as a medium to get the things that they want. And that can impede you on getting the shit you want. And that's kind of bad. Because I don't know about you guys. I hope you all want stuff that you want. Or at least try and get the stuff that you want. As obvious, this should be pretty intuitive. I think we've kind of evolved to understand bullshit and like lying at a, like, not necessarily low level, but like all the low-hanging fruit we kind of pick off and understand. But I'm going to try and go a little bit more in depth on some of the topics that people probably wouldn't necessarily think about all the time. And also keep in mind, I'm not perfect about this. This is a talk about bullshit. Don't just accept things that people say, even me. I may be presenting it, but think about it and make your own opinions. Particularly, you know, objective opinions. I don't necessarily care about like the subjectivity of things. But seriously, like actually think about things and question what I say. Don't just like accept it as, oh yeah, it's a presentation about whatever. So, talking about full disclaimer on things. Engagement. I'm going to start this chat. At the end, I'm going to, you know, say some content, and it's going to be finished. At the end of that chat, you're either going to give a shit and, you know, think, oh hey, yeah, I want to proactively think about bullshit, or you're going to say, yeah, Devon is whatever, I don't give a fuck. Like, okay, like there are two opinions. I hope that I can sway you guys all into the care bucket, but you know, there's realistically only a certain amount of throughput I can generate for my own effectiveness. I'm trying to be blunt and candid. So I'll explain why I hope you guys get into the care bucket now. So I've been doing a zero tolerance bullshit for a while. You know, everyone puts out bullshit to a certain extent, but I've been really trying to like fully pay attention to whenever I encounter bullshit, and you know, not only just understand why it's happening, but get myself out of that scenario because a whole bunch of bad stuff follows up from that. So not only one, I save a lot of time. That should be obvious because dealing with other people's shit is stupid. Like, I'm just gonna get what I want, right? I'm a very output-oriented person. Like, bullshit just detracts me from getting what I want, so as much as I can trim off, the better. I think just in general, I'm also gonna be reading off the slides. Actually, I'm going to be repeating off slides, but also clarifying for these benefit points. So I think that when you eliminate a lot of the bullshit that can kind of sway your opinions on things, just because if you are trying to evaluate a situation or you know what you should decide, whenever that extra bullshit is like weighing in your mind, whether it's subconscious or actual conscious, that is going to affect you. And like, you shouldn't waste cognitive processing thinking about bullshit. Like, just think about the problem and like what you actually want out of it. Because like, why spend all that extra time thinking about stuff? Another thing about freedom, I think it's great that, well, for me personally, just that I've removed a lot of the artificial boundaries that people put on you. There's like a lot of arbitrary rules, like in, let's say, social norms, that people just do things because that's the way they're supposed to be done, or, you know, that's just the way it is, or whatever. Like, I don't accept any of that. Like, I want to do what I want to do, so I'm going to do that. I kind of don't care about anything else. Everything's a trade-off. But like, realistically, I'm not going to like hold myself down due to artificial constraints that other people try to impose on me. And just on that, I think in general human nature, people do appreciate like bluntness and like candid truth. Like, you know, no one obviously likes getting lied to. There's some rabbit holes we could go down about people like getting lied to, but let's not focus on that. That's a whole discussion on itself. But I think that, you know, when you are kind of trimming out the bullshit, you're actually being a lot more candid and direct with people. And some people may like find that a little bit harsh, but I think for the most part, people have appreciated my conversations with them more when they realize that like, okay, like he's kind of just cutting to the end point, like, let's cut all this other stupid stuff out of the way. And they like, not only think that like, wow, this guy actually like knows what he's thinking about, right? Like he's not proposing these super arbitrary things, but also I think, you know, people not only appreciate and respect what I have to say more, so they'll actually pay more attention. So now let's focus on a little bit about motives. This is a stupid representation just because we as humans can't fathom like infinite n-dimensional space. This is a crappy rendition of saying, hey, imagine there are infinite amount of dimensions. Each dimension is some motivating factor that you care about, right? You are a singular point in time, and every action that you do will affect those characteristics in some positive or negative fashion, right? So kind of a way to think about it is, let's say if we pick a motive, right? I want to be a millionaire, right? Let's just say that for an example. There's, you know, if you look, or if you make that dimension like linear, just like a straight line, and you kind of ignore everything else and you try and track your progress along that one line, you can honestly say you start at 0, right? You 0% of your goal, you're broke. You know, full 100%, you're a millionaire, right? Realistically, you're somewhere along that line, right? And every decision that you make will trend you either towards or after that line, right? So every decision you make is either going to move you forward or backwards from your goal. So one of the things to think about bullshit is if you're working directly towards your goal and there's nothing in your way, like you'll always be trending more towards your actual goal. Like you're not going to, like you're never going to have a perfect straight line. Like the only way to have a perfect straight line for this goal is winning the lottery. That's pretty unlikely. But whenever you think of like bullshit, it's something that is going to move you further away from your goal, and that's bad. Just because I don't think you can imagine a scenario where, man, all that bullshit someone put me through really helped me achieve my goal better. Like, you know, that's kind of inconsequential and probably isn't going to really happen. So to kind of wrap that up, you know, bullshit is everywhere. I think it happens a lot more in the professional world. Like whether you're running a company or you're actually just working at a company or like corporate or even small business. But it also happens in some personal context too. Already saying it's, you know, pretty ineffective, and you know, there's a bunch of ways to iterate towards a end goal, and just bullshit is something that gets in the way of being there more effectively. So let's look into some of the reasons why someone would say bullshit. So obviously we said before, there's like, you know, being misleading or deceptive, right? So there's intentional ways. I think most of the times people are just trying to hide up information. I think as far as I've exampled, understood or categorized, people are always trying to hide the fact that they're either dumb, they don't care, or they're lazy. Those are like the 3 largest factors that people are trying to hide information from. You know, that's particularly in the professional world. But also, let's say people are trying to hide and say, you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, right? Like if someone's really shitty at something, you know, someone says, oh, well, yeah, these things you did good, and you can progress in this way. But like, you know, you're not really going to crush someone's soul and say like, no, like you're probably the 3rd worst designer I've ever seen in my life. Like that's kind of hurtful for people, and you know, that's the thing that people try and, you know, protect not only other people's emotions, but sometimes they'll do it for themselves. So obviously there are certain things, you know, lying has its own benefits, you know, don't really need to explain that. Some unintentional things. So there are ways that people like can create like bullshit for other people just because, you know, due to the circumstance, like if you don't fully think of something out, right? Like if you're trying to, you know, make a plan for something. If you're not like fully effective, like thinking out, you know, every step of the way, there's gonna be this fog that just creates distractions, right? You're not gonna have the most narrow path possible. And, you know, that's not because you're purposely trying to detract people from their goal, but it's just because you didn't put a lot of effort in. So, you know, your goal is of less quality, or I should say your path is of less quality. So, you know, that's some of the unintentional ways that people would actually create BS. So now kind of delving more into depth of, let's say, your inbound bullshit of like, what does it mean for me when, you know, someone puts their bullshit onto me, right? So, you know, one, they're trying to protect my feelings. We kind of already hit on that. But the other con's just like, kind of wasting my time, and whatever benefit I'm getting, like people aren't going to bullshit me into doing something that's better for me. They're trying to bullshit me into something that's better for them. So as you'll notice, if you kind of don't care about your feelings, or you're more resilient, you should have a zero acceptance policy for inbound bullshit, because there's no other pro. So if you're trying to be utilitarian, there's like no reason to accept inbound pro. So now, fun reason, let's say, why would you ever want to give outbound bullshit? I try and not give outbound bullshit, but you know, there are times where it just happens incidentally. So some of the pros, obviously we said lying. As I said before, you know, you don't want to say mean things to people. Apparently if you're blunt, a lot of the time people think you're an asshole. Go figure. I'm not going to be the nicest guy, but I'm going to be the truest guy. I'm trying to be a realist here. So obviously, you know, I have other things to try and get with delay, but also a thing that, you know, whenever you're bullshitting, even if you're the one creating it, like it's usually detracting from your own goals. So there's always like a detriment to your own ability to get something, because realistically speaking, if you can be candid with someone and say like, hey, you want this thing, I want something else, but you know, these intersect in some way, let's fully work towards that, right? If they fully understand that, they're going to be a lot more motivated, and it's actually going to help you get your goal faster, right? Versus having some person that's half motivated or doesn't really understand something. So I think that in general, like also, you want to minimize your bullshit out just because you're still wasting your own time indirectly. So now let's move on to some of the tools to